DHL has a presence in every single market. That gives you a fantastic vantage point to be able to comment on the infrastructure capacity and capability in South Africa, not just versus others in Africa, but versus others globally. You've got the benchmark. You've got to move stuff around. How are we doing?
Yeah, Adrian, so, it's quite interesting. You raised the topic of Rwanda earlier, and I'll come back to that. But if you just give everybody a sense of the cost of broken infrastructure. If you look at what logistics adds to the cost of a final product, if you look at Europe, it's anything between 3 to 5%, maybe 4 to 7%, depending which publications you read. America is not too different. On this continent, we're looking at anything between 40 to 45%.
Wow.
Why is that so much? It is so much because of the lack of infrastructure. If I put it in perspective, and I'll talk at a continental level, and then we can bring it back to South Africa. If you look at the connectivity of cities in Africa, only 12% of cities in Africa are connected by one flight a week. Let that sink in for a moment. Only 12% of cities on this continent are connected by one flight per week. So you can imagine the cost.
Wow.
The cost not just in the actual transportation, but the cost that's tied up, the capital that's tied up in those goods that's got to get transported. So I think that gives you a little bit of a sense. But then you go to Rwanda, and you look at what's happened in 94 in Rwanda versus what's happened in 94 in South Africa, and you look how the two countries have moved differently in terms of infrastructure. And I don't know who in this audience has been to Rwanda, but if you've been there, you'll know that the experience is a vastly different experience. And that experience starts the moment you arrive in the country. You arrive, and it's a very warm, friendly face on the other side of the immigration desk. They are well equipped. All the immigration counters are open. What's my point? My point is that your first experience is a warm, friendly, inviting experience. Then you go outside of the airport and you can literally eat off the streets. It's absolutely clean. So the experience, if you just think about investing, why would I invest? Well, it starts with your first experience as a foreigner into that country. Then we come down to South Africa, and to your question, how's the infrastructure doing here? Well, the experience firstly is not a great experience. If you come back, I came back the other day from Turkey. We were about 600 odd people at ORT, and we had 8 counters that were open. We stood in that hall for about an hour and 20 minutes. Now, if I was an investor coming in here, I would have probably already had doubts in my mind as to whether, if we can't just get the entry right, whether I want to invest here and what's it going to look like when we go further. But then let me finally get back then to what is the infrastructure looking like here. We are seeing a massive change, unfortunately not for the better. And in fact, if you look at many of the logistics companies, they're starting to reduce the areas where they deliver to, which means that goods are becoming less and less and less accessible. And it's either because of a lack of infrastructure, or it is because of safety concerns. So from that perspective, Adrian, unfortunately, it's not a great picture. But there are equally as many opportunities. If you just allow me 1 minute. Because I thought yesterday, so we can come here, we can say either the glass is half empty or the glass is half full. And if you just think, somebody asked me earlier on about the Red Bull event that was held in Sandton about a week ago, and for anybody here that likes the roar of a Formula One engine, you'll know last week we had a Formula One car kind of revving around Sandton. And we have got some existing infrastructure that's perhaps not in the best state, but it's low-hanging fruit. And if you fix that, that's your first catalyst, and you start getting a bit of tourism going, you start getting a bit of interest going. How is it that potentially Rwanda is going to beat us for hosting the very first F1 event with no infrastructure versus a South Africa and a Gauteng that has got some level of infrastructure? Sure, we all know it's not ready, and that's one example. So, perhaps a little bit more provocative to say, sure, there are these big ticket items that we need to apply our minds to, but there are also low-hanging fruit on things that do exist that may need a bit of a top-up. We understand that. not remotely the kind of numbers that are getting thrown around, but it's a start. So those are some of the thoughts around it.